Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Well, Donal Daly is a serial technology entrepreneur who has founded and built 5 successful software companies. Following the sale of his last company in 2019, Donal set about developing a platform to help businesses to improve their sustainability metrics. Donal joins us now to tell us about the Future Planet platform and his contribution to the handbook, The Customer is the Planet. But Donal, why did you decide to establish Future Planet?
Hi, Karl. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so I've been a software guy all my life. I've had, before this, 5 software companies. I started my first in 1986. And I had retired in, say, 2018. And my son, who is now 21 at that time, said to me one day, he said, "Dad, should I be worried?" And I said, "About what?" And he said, "Will the planet still be okay when I'm your age?" I understood his question, understood his concern, understood his anxiety, of course, and felt that it was appropriate at that point that I would use whatever expertise that I had gained in the preceding companies that I had. I had been working a lot with mid to large size corporates and figure if I could help them on their sustainability journey. And so that's what I do. I kind of build software products that help companies perform better. And in this case, the context is probably the most important one we have, which is sustainability, and that's what drove the company.
So talk to us about how Future Planet's software platform can help businesses to implement their sustainability strategy.
Our initial target was to help people improve what they were doing. In other words, so if they were using too much water, or if they were emitting too much carbon, or didn't have the right kind of employment practices in place, our original target was how we help people on that journey. And that was where we started with some initial customers. Along the way, the compliance landscape changed and became really important for companies to determine strategically what they should focus on. And there's a process around that. And then while they also improve, they have to gather data that they can do to calculate their emissions and understand their reporting, and then generate the actual report at the end. So because we kind of started in the middle, which is the improvement bit, we had this, unique platform now that helps people from the start, which will automatically generate much of the strategy for them, guide them on their improvement journeys, and then help them generate the report that they need to.
And what is a double materiality assessment, and how does the platform assist with its implementation?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I mean, double materiality looks at things from the impact that a company has on people and planet. So if I'm, let's say, a manufacturing company and I have some hazardous waste that I'm dumping somewhere, clearly that has a bad impact on people and planet. And so, in other words, the impact that a company has looking outwards, if you like, that's called the impact materiality. At the same time, of course, with the changes that are happening in climate, there are risks to a business. There might be devaluation of assets. There might be difficulties in supply chain. There might be difficulties in getting people to work in certain areas. So there's risk to the business and risk to the assets and the shareholders. That's financial risk that provides a risk to the business, and that's called the financial materiality. So the combination of impact materiality, which is kind of inside out, and financial materiality, which is outside in, is double materiality. What we have done to help solve that problem is because in reality, across the world, under different frameworks and different methodologies, there have been ways to approach both of those. So my background originally was in AI, so pull a lot of that knowledge together so that the software immediately tells you, using the double materiality principles, the areas that you should focus on, or what are called the material topics in your business.
And typically, how would you describe the type of businesses that you're working with?
So when we started, the initial assumption was the dirtier the business, the better. And by that I mean companies who are in like manufacturing or construction or pharma are the places where you would expect to see a lot of kind of waste and environmental impact. Of course, but as you look at it more closely, you look at the whole kind of value chain of a business. So its own operations, what happens with its suppliers and what happens with its customers. And that ends up crossing over the professional services organizations, particularly financial organizations who are funding these folks. So everything that I do in my business today has to be kind of dealt with or looked at through a sustainability lens. So the ones, what I refer to as kind of the dirtier businesses, have actually been quite responsible in this area. So manufacturing, construction and so on, and have been at this in many ways for 5 to 10 years. And the other companies are coming into it. So it spans pretty much every business sector at this point.
What is the primary motivation for these companies with deploying this particular software? Is it being driven by regulation or best practice, or is it to comply with an ISO standard?
Yeah, it's a combination of all of those. The companies who've been on the journey for a long time, who understand the things like the ISO standards and the benefits of those and the credibility and reputation enhancing factors of doing those things, that's still a really important part. So people who've been doing things like the quality standards like ISO 9001 or environmental like ISO 14001, they still do those for all those reasons that are, A, it's good practice in the business, B, it's a marketable part of their business and enhances their brand. So many are doing those, and they're doing it for good reasons. The next piece, of course, is the compliance piece. There's more than 3,000 pieces of legislation that people actually have to comply with. And as you may know, many companies from January of 2025 need to start reporting their sustainability activities. However, what's also happening is that investor pressure, investors are looking for their companies to be more sustainable. Employees are looking to work for companies that are more purposeful. So pressures are coming from everywhere. The short term right now is, I need to be compliant starting in January. So that's the kind of pressure for many companies today.
And from January, how will the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive enhance the demand for Future Planet's platform?
Yeah, it was. So we were around for a few years before the compliance kind of pressure happened. And at the moment, everyone's going, I need to do my CSRD or Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. I need to do DMA, which is the shorthand for Double Materiality Assessment. They're things that we do really well in the platform because of our heritage and our approach. So it's kind of been on fire, if I use that in a, hopefully not in as a pun, but that's kind of the CSRD is driving across Europe 50,000 companies from January 1, plus all the companies, that's basically large companies, plus all the companies in their supply chain. And so not just the big companies, but the companies that do business with the big companies, which at the end of the day means pretty much everyone.
And what results has Future Planet delivered for its clients? And are there any case study examples that you can share with us this morning?
We've worked with a range of companies. They're typically, as I say, mid to large. We'll have companies who have reduced their what's called their scope 3, their supply chain emissions. So that's emissions that they get from their suppliers, who will have reduced that by 40 to 50% through a sustainable procurement program. So we have a way to help people figure out how to work with their suppliers to ensure that the products they buy are more sustainable. So we've done that with a couple of large construction companies. We've worked with people in the telco sector to help them redesign some of their products to enable more circularity in what they do. So reusing products and reusing components. We did that with a company called Alcatel-Lucent Enterprise, where we work across 60 countries with their whole enterprise. And basically, it's about ensuring that the business that they're doing for all our clients just has sustainability at its core, which in the end means they do better business, as opposed to having sustainability as a reporting overhead, which doesn't really help anybody.
And Donal, you were involved in the compilation of a new handbook for sustainable business called The Customer is the Planet. Where did the idea for this handbook come from?
So I tend to write a lot, and I was writing about sustainability, and I do a regular post on LinkedIn every Monday morning called Daily Planet. And LinkedIn invited me to join a sustainability group on LinkedIn. And I ended up meeting this group of maybe 20 to 30 sustainability experts and practitioners and people who've been at this for 20 to 25 years. And we talked about how we could work collaboratively to solve this really big problem. And I said to the folks, look, maybe we could do a book. I've been fortunate enough to have 4 Amazon #1 bestsellers in my past. And they were all really excited, and they all agreed to collaborate on the book.
Talk to us about the type of guidance that is provided to businesses within the handbook.
There's kind of a combination of things. Firstly, it's a handbook to help people get through this compliance gate that they have to do. So in other words, it talks through the environmental issues the companies need to be concerned with, the social issues and the governance issues. And against each one of those, there are prescribed things that people need to do and report. So when we're talking about, let's say, water and how you use water within the book, we also talk about what's called the European Sustainability Reporting Standards, guidelines around how you report on water. We do similar things around biodiversity and around circular economy. So we have woven through the book the reporting that you have to do to be compliant. But that's built on the foundation of best practice in what's my best way to use water? How do I think about the systems impact of biodiversity? How do I look at climate mitigation and climate adaptation as practical things that I have to consider for my business? And so it's a combination of things I should do to make my business and the world better and how I should report.
And from your insights, what are the major challenges which businesses face when they try to improve sustainability within their organisations?
For most companies who haven't had a chance to get up to speed on this, it's a very broad topic because it touches everything that one does. So it's really hard for companies to say, how do I get started and where do I get started from? And in many cases, they worry about the data they have to gather, and they worry about the reports they have to do. But in reality, the hardest bit is thinking about strategically what this means for my business, as happens in any other business transformation. If I look at all my stakeholders, considering how sustainability is considered by my external, let's say my suppliers, by my customers, and then within my own organization, kind of getting a foundation, knowing where to start, I think is the point. And then thinking about how to operationalize it as part of how you do business. I think that's where companies struggle too. But those who do not only deliver better business, but they also deliver better business financial results. So that's all there to be done.
What advice have you got for businesses listening this morning where they have an extensive supply chain that they need to report on in association with them?
Yeah, so I think the supply chain engagement is really important. Doing prioritization around the supply chain and looking at, typically I'd look at my spend analysis of my suppliers and I'd go, so from a spend point of view, typically most organizations will do 80% of their spend to 20% of their suppliers. It's likely that if I focus on carbon for a second, it's likely that their carbon emissions correlates to their spend. So I'd be looking at how I can collaborate with those suppliers, how I can do things about how can we co-create some products, how can we think about if I share with them what my goals are and how I'm evaluating what I'm doing, then many suppliers are coming with really good ideas to help me figure out a solution to what I'm solving for.
And what additional government actions would you like to see introduced to assist businesses in this area?
So I think there is not yet. I think there's a lot of good stuff happening in government. I think lots of advisory stuff going on from government, lots of support programs from Enterprise Ireland as an example. So I think there's a lot of good things going on. I would like to see a lot more collaborative work coming from government about how companies can work together in a systematic and on systems way to combine, let's say, all the construction companies in Ireland working on the same system to work with the same suppliers to deliver sustainability across the industry. So I think that can be led by government. And I think the industries are looking for guidance in those areas. So I'd like to see that happening.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Donal Daly from Future Planet. And I've no doubt that the platform will be beneficial to businesses in helping them to meet their sustainability obligations.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.